it out every single set, and that's the main way of building it, and you have, like, more sets coming out, more new cards, than ever before. Eventually, it's not dropping a little bit of oil, it's like you're going BP oil spill, like, every week or something like that, you know? Like, it will affect it eventually, and I have been noticing that a lot more, and this is how they're getting new players into the game, and also they're new cards, so they're exciting. So if all these, I am a little bit worried about the design direction, but I think it's still good right now. But yeah,
I'm
worrying.
I'm curious what you and what Tomer and Phil think on this. Me and Richard were talking about this on the Goldfish Cast like a week ago. One thing I've noticed with Universes Beyond, and it was Heroes in the Half Shell from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that really drove this home, is it feels like there's some almost cookie cutter designs that they have to do every set. Like this, we have this template for the 5-color commander, and it does the thing for the thing that it is, and we put a bunch of keywords on it, and we do it again the next set, and the next set, and the next set. Have you guys noticed that? Do you think that's an actual thing, and do you think it's a bad thing?
I mean, yeah, the bottom. It's coming. What are they supposed to do? The turtle commander is gonna do something with turtles, I guess, because it would also be a waste if that's the super interesting 5-color commander. So I don't mind it in this case.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially if they do 7 sets, they kind of gotta do. It's also, it doesn't help that Universes Beyond kind of limits what they can do. I guess they're kind of flexible what they put on the cards, but there's not too much creativity in creating something where everything is already a given. Like there's already Sephiroth crowd and all the things, and then color identities kind of are given as well. I don't know. They do look cookie cutter, yeah. Especially the turtle one. And there's always a ninjutsu or something.
So I've heard the discourse because it was posted on my latest video and stuff. Like it's the Wooburg. It's the Wooburg. I am a Ninja Turtle. You will put all the Ninja Turtle cards in here, please, and it will make them somewhat playable because all of them are doing different things. You just throw them all together, and also the Cosmic Spider-Man is like, who cares? They're all different Spider-Mans. They do all different things. But they all have vigilance, lifelink, trample, and the commander itself just hits really hard. So, like, what more do you need, really? I think it's actually kind of fine because, like, it's just one of them, as long as that's not the strongest thing coming out of the set. Because, as Richard mentioned, we're as commander players, we're still aiming for what's the strongest commander, and that's going to be the most popular one. There's a strong correlation between what's like the easiest to build powerfully card and what's the most popular one. As long as the 5-color just jam all my Ninja Turtles into the deck one is not the strongest and most popular, then it's not a problem. If this is for like a new player, be like, I just like Ninja Turtles, give me the easy Ninja Turtle commander, I think it's fine. Same with the Cosmic Spider-Man. And also, Final Fantasy didn't have that. They had the Esper Terra, which is like the saga thing, and there was like the Lanes Matter Towns thingy, and both of them were interesting enough, I think. They weren't really fitting that mold, but they were the Wooburg ones. I think it also depends on the IP. I think maybe Spider-Man and the Turtles skews towards people who are not as familiar with the game, as opposed to Final Fantasy, which they said on record, I remember when they previewed it, that they expect the people who are buying Final Fantasy to already know the fundamentals of magic, so they can, add on top of that more complicated things. So I think it's fine.
I want to say we did it to ourselves. Do you guys remember werewolves?
Excellent.
So werewolves, a beloved type from Innistrad or whatever. They flip day, night, whatever, right? And they were like, there's no legendary werewolf. What's up, wizards? Like, why is there no legendary werewolf? I want to make a werewolf text. And we're just like, I got you, fam. Eldritch Moon, they make Ulrich, who does fighting or something unique, okay? And everyone's like, what is this trash commander? Okay? Like, we waited like 5 years or whatever for a werewolf commander, and you gave us this garbage? Everyone was upset. So Midnight Hunt comes around, they make Tovolar.
Yeah.
Tried and true, bread and butter, whenever a wolf or werewolf hits someone, draw a card, right? At the beginning of your upkeep, transform all your wolves, backside, draws more cards, I don't know, right? And everyone's like, yeah, good job, wizards. You finally made a worthy werewolf commander. And like,
I think it's fine.
That's what we do, right? Like, Ulrich was an interesting fight commander or something. I don't know what it did really, right? But People don't like it. They need the Toski in the command zone. Like, play my stuff, draw out the cards, be OP, threaten lethal, like be the overrun as well. So we kind of just did it to ourselves. So what do you expect? Which is just gives us what we want, right?
I mean, people like powerful cards. I don't think they necessarily have to be as cookie cutter-ish, but maybe they do have to be, because drawing cards is powerful and ramping's powerful. They know what makes for strong commanders, and it's easy to stick that on there. But I think it is true that we're at least somewhat responsible for that, because we do want the powerful cards, and those are the cards that get people excited. Even Vivi, which is just drawing standard right now, was like a super hype card, and it still is a super hype card because people love Vivi. So yeah, I think we bear at least some of the responsibility there. Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to bring this up. One of the downsides, theoretically, of Universes Beyond is you have someone else's IP on your cards. In some cases, you have real actors on your cards. We saw the Doctor Who actors. We're going to Star Trek. We've already seen pictures of William Shatner and whatever. Like, we know they're real people on there. How big of a risk do you think there is of this going wrong eventually? And we print a Magic card today of, actor X, Y, or Z, and then 10 years from now, he murders someone, or they do something horrible, and now there's a Magic card with this person on them. Is that something we should be concerned about? And is this any different than Crusade and the other cards from Magic's past that have been banned because 30 years later, they don't actually look very good? Like, is this a Universes Beyond problem? Is it a problem at all? And is it a Universes Beyond problem? Or do we have that same issue with in-universes cards, like those cards that needed to be banned?
I mean, they could have like an NFL player who,
right? Yeah,
he's a star right now,
OJ.
but then turns out it's next OJ. Yeah, like, it could happen. I feel like it's a risk they're willing to take, because then they just be like, all right, well, maybe we'll just ban this card or something, like afterwards.
Whoa.
I don't know.
I think the way bigger problem is that that's very Fortnite-y to me. If it's like exactly that, I would have accepted it with Lord of the Rings, because I really, really like the movies. But that's just me being a hypocrite, because for Star Trek, I feel like, wait, that's the guys. It looks so off on a Magic card. And maybe, actually, maybe the best way of doing Lord of the Rings for me, there was this holiday edition where they had these old school arts. And turns out I like these the most. So that would have probably been the way I would have preferred it. And maybe if I saw actual Frodo, like Elijah Wood's Frodo on there, I would have said, it's kind of not my immersion right there.
I would have liked them more.
DJing
in the beginning.
DJ Frodo, oh my god. They're going to have a bonus
That'd be
card
the secret
for
layer
DJ
drop,
Frodo.
yeah.
Oh, so
I don't think the worst part about having OJ on a Magic card would have been OJ on a Magic card, not what he does later.
Arcana. Farewell.
I mean, we've had this. Like, it happens time and time again where over time, like, the societal norms say, like, this isn't cool anymore. Like, we renamed Kaladesh to
Tribe.
a Vishkar.
Right.
A Vishkar, right?
Yeah.
Because at that time, they didn't understand what that meant or whatever, and we renamed things like shamans or whatever, right? Like,
and they
so
stopped
it
working with
happens.
certain artists too.
Yeah,
like
they stopped working with certain
Sabakinin,
artists.
Teresa Neeson,
They don't go back and ban the cards, but they always have
Yeah.
that in their pocket, right? Because we have the old cards from the 90s when things were vastly different that they just went back and banned, right? And then there are things that they fought back against too, right? Like, if you remember the 90s, Magic was Satan's game and demons, and let's ban it from our schools or whatever. And we're just like, no, right? So, whatever. I don't think it's a big issue. They do open themselves up to more of it because now they have real people. But I'm with Phil. Like, the real travesties have the real actor on there. You're like, oh, my immersion, right? Versus the chance that they do something bad in the future.
Yep.
Yeah, those are. Okay, go for it.
I mean, I wasn't full green. I was going to change the subject, so it's not the
Yeah,
universe.
what subject would you like to talk about?
Well, I was going to
Tomer?
say, what's like your worst case scenario for an IP? What's an IP that you're like, oh my god, I can't.
Yeah,
I can't
what is
even.
It went too far. What is the line there? I know I mentioned
K-pop.
before, Dora the Explorer, like the actual like shows made for actual like toddler age children. Like for me, I don't know
Teenage
why
Mutant
for
Ninja
me
Turtles?
that's just like. For some reason, I think that gets a pass because I was a child when that was made. I don't know. For some reason, that somehow feels different.
No,
But yeah,
but
like,
Yo,
oh my
I tell you
God.
this, okay? If they make
Yeah.
Peppa Pig Magic the Gathering, they get
gonna
+1
sell out.
new player.
Yeah.
Because I would play it with my son. He loves Peppa Pig. So it like kind of works. Even though
It's also
I would
like
be like, oh, this
Bluey
is
stuff, yeah.
disgusting, right? I'm like, I don't want this really. But it
Really?
would somehow
Okay.
kind of work somehow, right? Like, I think The Office
Yeah.
is disgusing, right? I'm like, I don't want. I think
Well,
SpongeBob
like, you know,
is disgusting too.
The Bluey set's gonna sell out, right? Like, I don't know anything about Bluey, but I have friends who are young parents, and it's not even for their kids. Like, they're gonna freaking love it. They're gonna buy the cards. They're gonna be like, I've watched every single Bluey episode with my child, and then it's like, I love it.
Is it this Avatar? I swear to God, Avatar is a kids show, regardless what everyone
It
keeps
is,
telling me.
yeah,
It's like
I
for 12,
Right?
Like,
Like,
I think
kind
for
of.
like teens, yeah.
But everyone's like, oh,
Young-
I watched
young
it growing
kids.
up, and now my kids watch it, and then now I can introduce it. I can introduce Magic the Gathering because I'm not showing my kid Duskmourn House of Horrors or whatever. I'm like, yeah, take the Bluey set, right? Like, here's a green deck. Go beat some veteran Magic players and make them salty, right? Like,
I mean,
don't know.
that's a problem with Universes Beyond in general, though. Somebody's nightmare is somebody's wish. So you always split
That's why
up the
it's made.
community no matter what you do. So for me, the worst thing possible would probably be not even like a game or like a show, but probably K-pop. Just something.
Oh, that's
BTS
what
or
I'm
something.
saying,
Bill. It's coming.
Oh, K-pop
They-
Demon
even
Yeah, I
Hunters.
know
They
the
were
Demon
looking at
Hunters
it,
thing.
Phil.
It's on
might
the
happen, and
express
it's-
list. Maybe
Oh
not
my
as full
God,
set, but like it'll
Don't.
probably be
Yeah, I
at
guess
least a
that's
secret layer.
that's a show, though, right?
It's a movie.
At
I
least
think
it's
that's
not
as, I think the
BTS,
worst is
the
like
band.
the State Farm secret layer or the Coca-Cola.
Oh,
Like
the
an
full
actual
corporate.
product with no
Yeah.
lore or whatever. They're like, oh, but you get the Coke bears.
But at
Okay,
least it's
a
not
bear set.
cringy.
Right.
At least Coca-Cola isn't cringy. If I have to explain to my parents or girlfriend that we're playing, especially my girlfriend now that she plays Magic.
Oh,
we're
she's
doing
gonna
K-pop
wait.
now.
Has she not watched K-pop Demon Hunters? I have a new date
No.
night suggestion for you.
Oh no! We're
Can you
very
give me
scared
her
of
contact?
that.
I have to tell her.
No.
something.
When we saw
I
this
have to
going
tell
to
her something.
Fortnite, we were immediately
coming to
scared.
Yo,
At least
the K-pop Demon Hunter slaps though, and
good in
also.
Fortnite.
It has a
Also,
plot.
it also has magic in it. Like I think that's the thing is like I really don't like sets that don't have magic in it. That's why like the Avatar fits better for me. And even K-pop fits better than me than like
I have enough
Teenage
arc
Mutant
line to
Ninja Turtles.
spare.
I'm sorry.
Wait, I'm not talking about the Demon Hunter
Find
show.
those who cannot travel to
Oh,
the
just
caverns.
K-pop in
I'm
general.
talking about BTS or something.
Oh,
like,
BTS.
Oh,
Yeah.
yo,
Oh, that's
BTS
coming.
would sell out so hard.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
What? I don't know. But
Couriers
that's what I mean.
deliver
though.
What's
That's
he's
my
taking
nightmare, and
notes
it's
of
somebody.
listening to us?
I guarantee you there will be
Intercept them.
a
Collect the correspondence they carry.
like band set or something. It may not be BTS. It may not be K-pop exactly, but some kind of like band set. Because like it's a very common thing in anime and cartoons and stuff where the band comes together, has magical powers or whatever. It's totally coming, Phil.
Oh, you
I-
mean like a Aether Drift, but instead of race, it's concerts
But they're
and stuff?
idols.
Or you mean
They'll
like
be
a
like
specific...
Backstreet Boys type. They're not like, not like our death metal band or whatever, right?
Yes, man, that's worst Aether Drift.
So I was doing some research a few days ago,
quickly,
and
my
one thing I
friend.
realized is Hasbro owns Monopoly, and there are at least 700 different reskins of Monopoly, right? Some say up to 3,000 if you count all the different versions, but there's a lot of versions of that. So I started looking through the different versions of Monopoly that exist in every Universes Beyond made so far, except for Final Fantasy. That was the one exception. Already has a Monopoly edition. They've already done the crossover with Hasbro. And then I started looking at the other things that we haven't gotten in Universes Beyond sets. And some of those were actually straight up companies. Snap-on, HP. There's a lot of
Yeah.
sports stuff. NASCAR and MLB and NBA and like real world actors like John Wayne Monopoly, Hollywood Monopoly.
This is John
Do you
Wayne
think that's
Monopoly.
John Wayne Monopoly? John Wayne Monopoly. What do you think that's what the future holds? Like, how would you feel about that kind of stuff? Like, companies,
money.
actors. No, how would you? Well, like, Hasbro would love it, but how would you feel? Like, Hasbro making money doesn't help you, Tomer.
Oh, I feel
It's not-
nothing
doesn't
anymore.
benefit-
It
Oh,
doesn't-
okay.
it's all
We're
the
comfortably
same to
numb.
me. It's
Okay.
like it's all just soup.
We should retreat while we still can.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like we're gonna be getting like Oreos food tokens soon. McDonald's. I'm sure there's gonna be like at least a McDonald's secret lair. I'm expecting
Ronald McDonald?
maybe
Grimace?
even a full fast food set. What about that? Oh my
I
god!
know.
And you just take
Do
all
that.
of it, and you put them all together, and then you
I
can
know.
get the ad revenue from all of them.
I
Oh
know
my
every
God.
secret lair drop or every Universes Beyond is in some sense an advertisement, right? Like in some ways it's advertising Final Fantasy or Lord of the Rings, but becoming blatant advertisements, that would be really tough on me.
Maybe
like
that's-
I already am not a fan of consumerism and corporatism and all this stuff, and like just having a can of Mountain Dew versus a McDonald's fry versus. For me, that would be a really big turnoff.
Okay. We're so negative here. Can we talk about a single
Let's
positive?
talk the positive.
Yes.
Okay.
So- wanna wrap up
okay.
by
So
asking you that, but go
there is the Mountain Dew secret lair, okay, and it
Yes.
generates $50 million in revenue for Hasbro. Now they can take this money and do whatever they want. Hopefully, it's not just get another Mountain Dew, but they can, exercise creative freedoms or whatever. Maybe do a risky War of the Spark return. I don't know. But like, what? Universes Beyond makes lots of money. Wizards takes
Yeah.
that money and they can do things with it, right? Is there any positive that can come out of this, right? Like, we're just selling our soul for a little bit of cash, guys, and then we're gonna use this cash to do something good. Like, is that even within the realm of possibility?
Is that how it works? I don't think that's how any of that works. Do you think they
I don't think
reinvest
that's how
in the
it
company?
works.
No.
They need their
I
Christmas
we just-
checks.
I actually just read an article. So I think this is happening, but it's not, from what I can tell, happening too much directly with Magic. So what I've seen from doing all these deep dives into Hasbro's finances and stuff is Magic makes a lot of money, Wizards makes a lot of money, and that's funding stuff like they're spending $1 billion to create these video game studios, to
And
create the next
show.
Baldur's Gate and do the next Monopoly Go. There's stuff like that. They're doing a Netflix TV show. So I think that there is upside there, right? Like, I know Magic players are excited about the possibility of a Netflix show. We'll see if it ends up happening and if it ends up being good if it does happen. But people are hyped about that. So I think there is some upside there. But I don't see that money being put directly back. It's because what I would like to see is like, oh, we're making all this money off Universes Beyond. We're going to have the most banger GP series of all time. GPs are back every weekend. We're going to have the sweetest pro tours. $1 million if you win the pro tour. We're so
The
flush
word
with
went off.
cash. But I don't see stuff like that happening.
Is that
right?
not
Like,
happening today,
Am I
though?
missing it?
Who's subsidizing
It does-
the Pro Tour? Is it not Secret Lair The Office? Like,
I mean, it is, but it's still a shell of what it was 10 years ago before any of this existed at all. They were supporting it at the same level or more 10 years ago. So, but I think it could do that. Like, it would be nice if it did that. The other place the money goes is Hasbro's paid, like, over the last 5 years, I think it's $5.9 billion in dividends to shareholders. So a huge chunk of the money they actually make goes to the people that
Yes.
own the stock because they're a dividend company. So
It used to be a long, long time ago that when you made lots of profits of your company, you would reinvest in the company too. So, let's say foils are curling too much, and they want to make they make a lot of money this year. So they're like, you know what, we're going to take a good chunk of that, and we're going to make the card quality better, and then we're also going to put more money into R&D, and we're also going to increase the design group and stuff, and we're going to make sure that the next year is going to be even better quality, and therefore we're going to sell more. I don't think that's the case anymore. That's just if they make more profits, they're like, well, everything's working great. Why do we need to invest in the company? The shareholders, they're hungry for more gold.
They are investing. You just don't agree with it, right? There's no way
Yes.
they can make
No, they're
7
going to the
new
show.
Universes Beyond sets this year had they not
Yeah.
made money hand over fist last year, right? So
I think
they
now-
are investing just in ways we don't want.
That's,
I think
that's
what they're
actually how
doing-
it goes. It's
the-
like now we have the money to buy
Yes.
the NFL IP. We
Yes.
we couldn't get that one
Yes.
before,
No.
but now we got the cash
Yeah,
for it or
they're
whatever.
going around and they're like,
yeah.
we need to make sure that we are the biggest mainstream. Like, now that everybody knows who we are, we're the kids on the block that we've proven ourselves. Now we can go to even bigger IPs. Now we can go to BTS, and we can get BTS to do a commercial for us, which would cost hundreds of millions of dollars for a BTS commercial.
Okay.
For
I'll
them
give
to,
you guys
to
the
show the
hard-hitting
set.
question, okay? Would you rather have Magic die 7 years ago? Let's say War of the Spark was the end of it all, right? Like, that was Magic ran out of money, but it kept its identity. Would you rather have the game die and, die in the state of War of the Spark? Or would you rather have it live on as 2025 Magic, where we're playing Donatello versus Carnage, maximum whatever, like
There.
is it better just to let the game rest and like leave it alone, or should we keep stringing it along, right? Because that's kind of what Universes Beyond is enabling. It's enabling that Magic exists in 20 years, but it probably ain't the same Magic, right? So should we just have let it die? What do you guys think?
I would not want Magic to have died with War of the Spark. I hold out hope. One thing I have learned over all my time following Wizards is Wizards sometimes goes too far. When they have what they think is a great idea, they sometimes go way too far with that idea. And we've seen this with card designs where you make equipment and then you push them way too far at first, or you make vehicles and you push them way too far at first, and you got treasures and you push them way too far, and then they got to enter tapped. So one thing I've seen with Wizards time and time again, we saw this with the MPL, if you want a non-gameplay example. We're going to be an esport. We get rid of everything. We're putting all our money into being an esport. And then 3, 4, 5 years later, it's like, maybe we're not an esport. Let's bring back the paper Pro Tours. So I wouldn't want Magic to die because, for one, I still love Magic. Even right now, even though I don't think Magic is at its peak as far as how good its gameplay is, I still really love playing Magic and really enjoy playing Magic. So I'm still enjoying it right now. And I think the game living means there's always a chance that things are going to get better in the future. And I really think that Wizards might have pushed a little bit too far, too fast with Universes Beyond. I think going to have more than half of your sets be Universes Beyond in such a short time frame, stuff like that, I think, is just going to rub people the wrong way. And I fully expect that Wizards will end up normalizing, assuming that people really are as upset about this as they say. When people get upset and then they just buy all the sets, and if we end up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles beats Final Fantasy and it's the best-selling set ever, they're going to make more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But if people really are not buying Spider-Man, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles doesn't sell that well, I actually have faith that Wizards will course correct. I don't think Universes Beyond will ever go away at this point. I think it's very unlikely, unless the game was really people would have to be really, really not buying stuff for Wizards to be like, okay, I'm sorry, we're going to ban all the Universes Beyond cards, we'll never do it again. That doesn't seem likely, but I could definitely see a world where we get back to 4 in-universe sets and 2 Universes Beyond sets a year or something. We could see a more balanced mixture of things. So that's my take. I wouldn't want the game to die, and I think it's important to remember that things can always change in the future, and we've seen Wizards change, and they have a track record of going too far sometimes at first.
Yeah. I was super negative this podcast because I never had a chance to be very negative about Universe Beyond, and this was like a catharsis. I could just let it out, and it felt great. I got to rant about birds, and man, that was sitting on my chest for so long, so thank you for the opportunity and for listening. But yeah, I would much prefer Magic stay alive, even if it was making Oreo food tokens and NFL player characters that are legendary that you can build around. Whatever. I prefer them being around. I do find it a little bit dystopian, though. That's if they make I don't know, 800 million net profit a year, but they made 16 bajillion profits the year before, it's suddenly a catastrophe that, oh no, the company's sinking because they only made 800 million in net profits this year. I think that's a little bit dystopian. The chase for infinite growth at all costs kind of sucks. And I think that if we didn't go for Universes Beyond, I think we would have been fine. I think we would have, the company still would have been doing just fine, not making as much money, but still making stupid amounts of money compared to the costs. But yeah, I think I would much rather keep it alive. And also, I'm actually very excited for the show. I think that's the thing I'm most excited for. If they took all the Universes Beyond money and they just made an arcane show, and they said, look, we had to have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles so we could pay for the arcane show for Magic, I'd be like, give me another one. Give me Teenage Mutant Ninja 2. Give me more. Relief. And I will eat up all your arcane TV show.
Don't get too
Jace gets transported to New York City, and he finds a slice of pizza on the ground.
Yes. Hire the same studio. Hire the same studio. Hire the same writers. Hire everything and double their pay. And they're good. Done. Throw the money.
I am so scared of the Netflix show. No way this is gonna...
It's gonna be so bad.
No.
It could not be, but maybe.
No, this time it's gonna be good. I'm sure.
And so to wrap things up, we're gonna wrap things up in just a minute. I did want to mention though, on the way out the door, is there anything else that you have actually found positive about Universes Beyond and Commander? Because we have really been pretty negative for a big chunk of this cast, and I will say there's some things that I have found positive, and a couple of them that I would say is I sometimes like the characters or IP. Like, I found out that Final Fantasy was pretty cool and the characters were pretty cool, and I never played Final Fantasy before, and I really enjoyed that set. And I also think that even though I think it sometimes leads to cookie cutter designs where you end up doing the generic 5-color commander for the new players, I also think that it leads to some innovative designs where we do see some cool stuff where Wizards, I think, is trying to make like a top-down design of some character from some other game, and where that leads them to is a place that I'm not sure they would have ended up if they were just designing, you know, an in-universe card off the top of their head. Because they're trying to make the card fit the character, sometimes it leads to cool things that we wouldn't have seen otherwise that I have found to be really fun. So I think there are definitely upsides here to Universes Beyond as well. But I wanted to ask all you guys that. Is there anything that you personally actually like about UB or found to be a positive for Commander?
I mean, I met one of my play groups due to the Warhammer decks releasing, so I found out that the people I played Magic and Warhammer with back in the day, like 3 of them actually got all the precons, and then I met one of them and they said, wait, aren't you doing Magic now? We all started again with these decks, and I said, well, I bought the deck as well, and then we met up and now we meet at pre-release every time, except for Spider-Man.
Cool.
Oh, did you play Warhammer with them back in? Did you play Warhammer?
Yeah, well, way back in the day, like as children, we played Magic and Warhammer.
Oh, what was your army?
Eldar and then Nurgle.
And I mean, and what you just said, Phil, lines up with something that Wizards has said, which is UB is one of the best ways for us to bring in new players and to get back lapsed players, people who used to play 20 years ago and haven't played, or 10 years ago and haven't played in a long time. These sets are bringing them back in. So even though we're focused more on like what's good for us personally, I think that there is an upside for the whole community there, where I think pretty much everyone agrees, you know, old players returning to the game that have lapsed is a positive, right? That's good for all of us if those people are playing again, and new players are good. But what about you, Tomer? Is there anything that you have found to be a positive about UB?
I mean, that's the biggest one, is getting new players into the game, if this is the best way of doing that. And they say the data says that it is. I think that's the biggest draw. I have a friend of mine. She said that she's going to try out Magic as soon as they do the Animal Crossing Magic set. So I'm looking forward to that. Genuinely, I'm looking forward to it, because then I get to play Magic with her. I think that's very cool. And then also, I do think a lot of the designs on some of the, especially the precon ones, have been really good. Like the Fallout ones were standouts to me. I really liked the junk mechanic. I really liked the rad counters. I thought radiation was just so cool, so well done, and I'm really excited. I hope that it comes back. And then also the Warhammer precons were obviously amazing, especially when you can just you have 4 precons on that IP, and then you could play them, and every single card has artwork in its theme around that setting. It feels just so beautiful to me. Same with the Final Fantasy ones. So I do I don't mind all Universes Beyond or anything. I like when it's well done, and especially the Commander precons I thought were all really, really incredible.
I think the lack of the precons is a big part of the reason why the Spider-Man release didn't go over as well. I think if they had precons for that, I think it would have changed the reaction, I think, to some extent for the Spider-Man set. But we're going to wrap things up with the final word. You, Richard, the Codfather. What are the positives for you? Is there anything that you like about UB?
I like meeting enthusiastic people, right? So Spider-Man pre-release, I played many people. They're like, oh my God, I love Spider-Man. And they're just rambling on about Spider-Man. And I enjoyed it. You know, I like Spider-Man. I like when people are super passionate about something. And I feel really bad for them, because a lot of people are apologetic. It's is it okay if I like Spider-Man? I know the internet is so hateful. I'm like, what the hell, man? Right?
Seriously,
it's really cool. And we crap on The Office all day, but it would be very sweet if I sat down and someone had their Dwight deck and they were super enthusiastic and rattling off quotes about The Office and stuff. I think that happens a lot more with Universes Beyond, and I think it's very cool. And even if I don't personally enjoy whatever IP they're playing, like the fact that they're having a great time, they're enthusiastic, they're giving me that energy, like makes my day better. So I actually really like that part, and it brings back lapsed players, new players, things like that. So I do think it is overall better for the game, even if they do go too far. But the more passionate, enthusiastic people we get in our game, I think the better, right? And previously that had to be in universe only, but like show me the $20,000 Ninja Turtle deck, like bring it, right? Like I want to see, right? I will partake in your enjoyment, right? So I like that part of it. We'll see how I feel about it when someone really likes Coca-La. And it's like, here's my Coca-Cola.
I'm so passionate
Have
about
a beverage.
On that note, everyone, I think that's our Universes Beyond.
All right, and welcome back to episode 69 of The Bench, powered by Wowhead. And this week, Growl has been grinding Fellowship nonstop, 18 hours a day since Thursday. How are you feeling?
Tired, man, tired. My sleep is so messed up. The problem with grinding a game and playing too much is not only do you do that, but then you eat like crap too. And so then you eat like crap and you sleep like crap, and it just derails your whole life. But you know what? Sometimes you just need your life derailed because it feels good to have, you know what I mean? Like when you wake up, now granted you might be waking up at 5 p.m., but sometimes you just wake up and you just can't think of anything but logging onto a game, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I've seen you guys have been playing a crap ton. How many hours are you guys at now right now?
Hold on, let me see. I'm at 56.
So what is this, day 4 of Fellowship, or oh no, I just looked at mine. I'm at 73.
This is day 5. You're
Day
73?
What's 73 divided by 5? That's not that many.
Squishy, you got a math degree.
Like 15 hours a day.
Chosen.
He wasn't
It's been
kidding
fun.
about
It's been fun.
wake up, eat, play for Fellowship for 15 hours, go back to sleep.
Yep. It's actually been a lot of fun, and the more I play, this might be interesting, and I don't know if Growl feels the same. The more I play, the less I actually feel like it feels like I'm playing World of Warcraft. I know that a lot of people love to compare the two, but it's one of those things that in World of Warcraft, your objective is to make your character or your account better, where in Fellowship, your main objective is to time the highest content possible. And in World of Warcraft, it's like the way that you make your character or your account better is very subjective. It's, whether or not you want to go farm achievement points, whether or not you want to go farm mounts, whether or not you want to mythic raid, whether or not you want to do mythic plus. And for Fellowship, it's like the goals are very much aligned with one another. And you kind of always have that strong, firm goal in a way that you don't have in World of Warcraft. And it's like, I feel like the more I've been playing it, the less it's felt like WoW in my mind, and the more it's felt like an ARPG.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a blessing and a curse, right? Like, on one hand, there's been so many people who are like, is this the WoW killer? Is this going to replace WoW? And it's just like, no, like, it doesn't have the staying power or the depth without all of the things in WoW. Like, one thing that makes WoW special is it brings together a ton of different people that play the game for a bunch of different reasons.
Yes.
But some of the times, you kind of just wish that you could log on and play Mythic Plus and you don't have to worry about leveling your character or setting up a UI or, raid or anything like that, And so I think it's like an interesting thought experiment. I know this is like the 3rd episode that we're probably going to talk a decent amount about Fellowship, and to people who aren't playing it, it's probably a little annoying. But I think it's a very, very cool thought experiment and like way to reflect on Mythic Plus as to like, what things are good for Mythic Plus, what things are bad, like what things exist only because of other parts of the game. It's just like, I mean, that's what hooked me to WoW in the first place, is there is nothing like Mythic Plus anywhere. Even though there are very, very good competitive MMOs and RPGs and raids and stuff, like, you can't get that really close, tight-knit dungeon experience gameplay that you can get with WoW anywhere else, literally any other game. So it's like the first time that we've been able to actually compare it to something.
Yeah, so let's start with some interesting comparisons. So we did a playtest with Hamish back in, I think it was maybe like even May, maybe before that, something like that. And we were able to playtest it, and he posted something interesting in the Fellowship Discord where he posted the role breakdowns of players that were trying to queue in the solo queue endeavor. Squishy, you had some thoughts about this, the role imbalance here. Why don't you take your first crack at this?
So I think we talked about it a week or two ago where like we were talking about beta, like, oh, there's a lot of people just testing out tanks, seeing how they feel and stuff like that. And I had the speculation that the second that the game would launch, the flood of DPS would come in. And the flood of DPS did indeed come in. And it looks kind of, I would say probably what a WoW breakdown would look like. Would you agree with that?
I think that there are actually more DPS and less tanks in WoW, surprisingly enough, because... Well, WoW does this thing where there's 3 DPS, right, per dungeon.
Oh.
And Fellowship only has 2, so I think that they're almost by virtue of that has to be more DPS in WoW.
So you think the ratio is more off, essentially?
In World of Warcraft, yes, I think so. I would believe that the ratio is more fucked in WoW. Yeah. Which is crazy because you look at these ratios, you're like, oh wow, that's bad. You look at Contender here, and it's seriously just a huge problem because it's a bottleneck. What this creates is a bottleneck where groups don't get formed because there's so few tanks. Or rather, whenever these screenshots are taken, every single tank who queues up is immediately into a group. So of course they're not waiting in queue. They're immediately filled into a group. So the only people who are actually waiting are the DPS and the healers.
How long are DPS queues? Like.
It really depends. So I did a double DPS queue at the highest level in Paragon, and a double DPS queue took us 35 minutes. I did a solo DPS. But that is a high rank. I did a solo DPS queue also at the top of Paragon, and that took, I think, probably 12 minutes. So it's a pretty long time. Growl might have more insight as to some of the lower ranks because you played like Rhyme and stuff like that at some of the lower levels, right?
Yeah, I've actually been a little bit of a solo queue demon just because I don't know, like it's just fun and I've just been queuing and kind of so I've been playing mostly healer, but I played a little bit of DPS. Queue times at high ranks vary a lot. I mean, it's a lot like Mythic Plus, right, where your selection is very limited, and if you get lucky and there's the right people online, like you can slide into group after group, or there's some times where you might sit there for an hour and like get terrible runs. But yeah, I don't know exactly how these statistics work, like if this was like number of people in the queue or like over a certain amount of period, but clearly like, okay, there's not 6 tanks in all of the first rank, but it's, it shows that there's way fewer tanks than there are other roles. And I don't really know if there's a good fix to that, but I hope that this helps people visualize like this is something that we constantly harp on, and also we don't really give very good feedback, right? Because like I don't really have a good answer as to how do you make more tanks in World of Warcraft, but just to show. And another thing that's about these queues is interesting is that there's no LFG menu, right? Like you can queue as 4 if you want to, but there's no like, list your name and say what you're looking for or try and put together a team.
Yeah.
If you're trying to play, you either queue up with 4 friends or you use the queue. And so I think it would get even worse in WoW, right? Because in WoW, they wouldn't remove LFG. There would be solo queue and LFG, so the queues would get split even more.
I'm interested in your guys' thoughts on this, but I think that this is like an issue whenever you talk about like tank scarcity. I think it is very strongly an issue that's correlated with leadership, right? Tank is viewed as the role that has to be a leader in a group, and like it or not, just human nature is to not be a leader. Most people, they don't want to be self-employed. Most people, they don't want to be a boss. They cap out at middle management. They're okay with just being like a middling level employee. They go home, they live their best life, and they are okay with doing that. Whereas tank is like the equivalent of, you want to be an executive, you want to be self-employed, that kind of thing. You want to be a leader, right? Because tank requires, herding these sheep of DPS and healer around the dungeon. And there is a lot of control that a tank has in a dungeon. But also, I think that most people just don't want that stress of the leadership element of it. And, I think that actually puts a lot of people off whenever they think of what is a tank as a role.
I honestly think it's an unsolvable problem.
Yes.
The only way to solve the problem is to delete the Trinity, and that is a completely different game.
So they could delete tank. I think that deleting tank actually could be kind of an interesting thought process where you remove mobs meleeing in general, and then you have a healer in 3 DPS or a healer in 2 DPS or something like that, and that is your group.
That's not even what I'm talking about. I think if you delete tank, you delete healer too. I think it is like, I think you can probably do something like convert those 2 roles into a support role.
Okay.
Like an AUG evoker like thing or a bard in Final Fantasy, but that is the furthest into like support that they go. But they're essentially just considered another DPS.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's dramatically changed.
That is very
different. Yes.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it was just very much a like. I don't think there's any solving this. Any game with a Trinity, there is going to be, a lack of tanks. Because people, I've seen a bunch of tweets and stuff like that of people saying, tanking is more fun in this game. Blizzard, take note. But even though tanking is more fun, there's all the added stuff that happens that still pushes them off the roll.
People don't want to play tank. I think that's the core of it. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, what I was just gonna say is that I think one of the big problems with tank that I think could be solvable is I feel like tank has a level of knowledge that's sort of required. Like, for example, let's say I bring in my roommate who's never played World of Warcraft before, never played Mythic Plus, but like plays games, right? I could tell him to like get on a hunter or a frost mage, and like I think he would genuinely learn, and he would like, the first couple dungeons might be a little bit painful, but he would catch on. But like now imagine that as him tanking, right? If you've never played it, right, like, you'd have to like point out, okay, pull this pack, okay, pull this pack, okay, walk here. It's just hard for someone who's brand new to the game to get into tank. So like when I first started World of Warcraft, kind of a funny story, I wanted to play tank. Like my plan was to play tank because, I don't know, I just like the yellow people on the internet, and that's what I envisioned as a tank in my head. But I'm not going to play tank as my first character, right? So I started as a healer. And then I kind of just always played healer, and I never got around to switching to tank, right? And it's like, I think that happens to a lot of people where you've invested a lot of time in getting good at / gearing a character that's not a tank, and then you're like, all right, well, I guess I'm not tanking anymore, right? Whereas like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know, because at the same time, like any sort of tutorials or like, single player thing, I don't think would be very fun or interesting or good for, you know what I mean? I don't know. But I do think there's something there with like how to onboard people as tanks. And I'm very interested to see what Fellowship does, because here's the thing about WoW is it's such a big machine that they can't, like, they have to be safe. But I think Fellowship can do weird stuff and experiment, right? And so like they recognize that their big advantage is having a solo queue Mythic Plus, and if they can get the tank problem fixed and somehow onboard people to play tank, then a lot of people are going to enjoy that game a lot more.
They can more aggressively make changes, but I think that the thing that you were describing where you're like, well, if you're playing with a buddy, are you going to tell him to play a tank, or are you going to tell him to play a DPS? And you're always going to tell him to play a DPS. I think that that is part of that leadership element, right? Where you need somebody who's very strong-willed and is like knows what's going on. And I think that that's like something that most people would just rather kind of coast, which is like, for better or worse, it's just how most people would prefer to play a video game. They don't want to set up the time. People get paralyzed a lot. At least this is with Mythic Plus. This is less true with Fellowship, but this is more true with Mythic Plus. They get paralyzed by the route and the concept of playing a bad route. Realistically, I'm going to be honest, people way overthink their routes. Like, you can hold W and you're mostly fine. Like, if you like make a huge mistake with the route, it's not even that big of a deal most of the time. And even if you do make a big mistake with the route, you'll figure it out with time. It's not something that you have to like really pre-plan a bunch of routes, but everybody has in their head that you need to actually go through and pre-plan your route, which I don't believe that that's true, but I believe that people think that they need to.
I would love to see improvements on a bunch of fronts to make things easier for tanks. The first one, like you mentioned the route. I think like this is a long shot. Again, just like cool things. Imagine like an in-game MDT type thing where you could like choose your route and then you basically just have like once the key starts, you just have like a GPS or something. It shows you which packs you want to pull. Because like
They all like glow and stuff.
yeah, or like there's a fucking arrow, or the quest marker out in the world that shows you pull this one and this one. Like there's ways to make it easier. Whether or not they like that is a different story.
Yeah.
But that is like one way to reduce the impact of the route, because I'll be honest, for when you're starting off tanking, sometimes you look at this, you're like, this is the perfect route. Was it this pack on the left or this pack on the right? /MDT, like, okay, it's this one. Then you close it. It's just a little like janky.
Yeah.
So I think there's ways that they can make it reduce the burden.
Now, there is something that I did want to bring up. I tweeted this out, and somebody asked the question, would you say that Fellowship does anything better than WoW's Mythic Plus? It was kind of an interesting question. My response were, I think that bosses in Fellowship are actually much better than bosses in Mythic Plus, and the shorter dungeons are really nice. And I think that we've seen that the shorter dungeon sentiment is kind of something that's starting to be a common trend as well, where the...
Starting?
Well... I don't think that people were really got their minds wrapped around, oh, what is a 12-minute dungeon going to feel like? What is a 13-minute dungeon going to feel like? But now that now that some people have seen in Fellowship, they're like, oh, wow, this is kind of nice, huh?
I mean, people have wanted shorter dungeons since 45-minute Halls of Valor back in the day, or 45-minute Arcway, right? Like, people have always wanted, and Blizzard has pushed away from 45s, now it's 30.
Yeah.
30, 35, right? So... I personally think there is a big desire to do 15-minute dungeons.
I think that
15 minutes is a lot easier.
It's going to be really hard to appropriately reward 15-minute dungeons, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, I am personally of the opinion that short dungeons are so good for the game in terms of being able to just play and have fun, and it just I just think that that's a very, like, it's one of the reasons that I think everybody's having so much fun with this game.
Yes,
it's simply just the shorter dungeons. So one interesting, a chatter who likes to rub my takes in my face sometimes made a comment about resilient keys, right? And he said, well, how do you feel about resilient keys in Fellowship? It would probably be a lot more fun if they depleted, right? And I kind of was thinking about it, and I was like, what, would I argue for depletion in Fellowship, right? It was kind of like a silly question, but here's the thing, right? When you're doing a timed speed run thing, right? Whether you're really good or really bad, you kind of want to have a perfect run, right? Like, everyone's experienced this phenomenon now that they've added the abandon system, where you do the first pull, or you're 1 or 2 pulls into the dungeon, and then it's like, oh, is Resil, let's walk out. And it's like, bro, this shit was so easily timeable, right? But it's like, the way that people want to play is they want to just start off the thing right, and they want to have a perfect, clean run, right? And regardless of what's good or what's bad or what I want, in general, a lot of people want that, right? They want the perfect run. That's part of the reason why they play. And it's like, well, the shorter dungeon really allows for that, right? Like, the shorter dungeon, like a 10-minute, a 12-minute dungeon really does allow for, like, you're expecting to have no deaths, no wipes. Like, if you wipe in a 12-minute dungeon, that's like, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, there's one freaking boss, like, you just beat the boss and then you better not wipe, right? And so I think that the way people like to play and the runs people like to have fit more along with those shorter dungeons of, just like, well, like, anytime when you reset in Fellowship and you go again, even though, like, it just doesn't really feel that bad, because it's like, oh, we're only a couple minutes in.
It's a
like,
10-minute dungeon.
Time.
Yes.
Right, exactly. I think it's very different when you, like, talking about consistency in dungeons when you compare a 12-minute dungeon to a 30-minute dungeon.
I have a feeling that Blizzard is never going to do shorter dungeons, though, because they like to tell their stories in the dungeons. Right? Like, all of the dungeons have a purpose.
Yeah.
They tell a story. There are quests leading to them. Stuff like that. So...
Blizzard loves the formula of 3 and 4 boss dungeons as well, which I think restricts, your dungeons has to be so long unless they were going to cut it down to 1 boss dungeons.
A really funny dorky take is he commented on, well, I love this because it's a fun, bite-sized way to experience the game. You don't have to do a full dungeon, you just load in for 10 minutes and play. And then he's like, well, this is what delves are in WoW. Like, this is like, Blizzard's not going to do this because they have delves. Why would you add a 12-minute dungeon when you can just do a delve? And it's like, I don't know, like, I don't necessarily agree, but it is kind of.
I don't agree, but like I see what you're saying.
I really like the shorter dungeons. I think there needs to be more short form content in WoW.
Yeah.
Like, setting aside 30, 35 minutes is a big task for a lot of people, but setting aside 15, way easier.
I think that Fellowship does a really good job of respecting your time. I think that that is something that's a very large pro with this game. World of Warcraft, you know, World of Warcraft feels like a game that you play as a hobby. You set aside very specific allocated time to it. You know, we got game night with the boys, we got D&D, we have men's soccer, and I raid on the weekends or something like that, right? You set aside very specific time to World of Warcraft. Where Fellowship, it does a better job of being this game that you jump in, jump out of as you have time, and assuming that you're not stuck in a queue when the servers are going down. But assuming that those things aren't happening, it does a really good job of respecting your time.
I think one of the things that you mentioned, the question of what does it do better than Mythic Plus? I don't know about Mythic Plus specifically, but one thing I think that Fellowship does really well is the difficulty curve. So, for example, in WoW, it definitely feels like, to some extent, they're really scared of failure, right? Like, when you queue up to a heroic dungeon, it is very hard to fail or wipe or whatever. Like, they give you these weird, like, slap on the wrist when you make mistakes in mechanics, but, like, nothing really kills you, right? And the problem is, like, there's these random things sprinkled into this content that does kill you, right? So, for example, LFR Razagath, right? Like, that was just a nightmare because people that do LFR, they're not used to being able to die. Like, and then all of a sudden you have a boss that kills you and everyone just dies, and it's like, you have all these people that are used to doing this content where you just turn your brain off, or like the last boss of Arakara, which, funny enough, they nerfed, right? Whereas
they needed to nerf it, right? Yeah.
All you literally have to do was go in a puddle before the suck, and at a low key level, you're only doing it twice, maybe 3 times in the whole fight, right? But the thing is, these pass-fail mechanics are so infrequent, and it's kind of funny. That's something that I've almost complained about or disliked in the past, the idea of pass-fail. But what Fellowship does actually is introduces them very, very early. Like, you're 5 hours into the game, and it's already, you know, willing to kill you and tell you, hey, you need to do this or you messed up or whatever. And it's like, I think that it layers on the thing. It trusts the player to be like, okay, I need to do this, right? And the mechanics are so simple. You know, oh, there's a soak, you have to stand in it. That's it. That's the whole boss is the one soak. Or like an intermission where it's like the boss like stuns you and sings a song and pulls you off, and you have to latch yourself to the middle, right?
Yeah.
And it happens one time in the whole fight. You have to click the thing, right? But that, you know, I'm watching Limit Max, and he doesn't know that he has to click on the thing, and his chat is typing pee-pee laugh, and then he just gets sucked off the boat, and then it's like, but it's kind of cool, right? That you're 2 hours, it's sort of like Elden Ring, right? Where it trust that you're gonna die and you're gonna fail, and then it's gonna, you know, you're gonna learn, and then you're gonna get better. Where I think that WoW tends to baby people a little bit, and then, but eventually you have to kill them, right? Like, eventually there has to be some difficulty in WoW where it kills you, and it's like, there's always gonna be that pain period. And so introducing it early and at a more basic level, I think is better for players.
What have you guys thought about the class? Oh, sorry, you go first.
I was gonna say that has been my hot take for a while, and people call it, you know, a little
elitist. You're an asshole. You want to gatekeep, right? And that's, I mean, maybe that's what we're saying, but you know, I don't know. I think that, like, just because somebody is a casual in WoW or they don't play that much or their character doesn't have that much gear doesn't mean they're like a mouth breather, random idiot, right? Like, you can challenge people and give people things to do, and then it feels good when you learn them.
When is it acceptable though to implement these things?
I think there's a bunch of factors. The number one thing is, how clear is it? If you wipe, you need to know exactly what you did wrong.
Yeah.
And not just like,
Fellowship could do a better job of doing that, I'm gonna be honest.
I think that's like the number, or like, somebody has to know what happened. Maybe not you, but the party has to be like, what did we do wrong? You know, like, I think that's a big thing that I think both games sometimes struggle with a little. Like, I remember the first time we did the dungeon, we had to click the anchor.
Yeah.
And we had no idea you needed to click the anchor. We just got pushed off. We're like, what the fuck do we do here? And then later on, they added like a little like flashing like arrow or something, I think, over the pillar you click during it. Just something to indicate that you are supposed to do this. And then you figure it out. And I think that's perfectly fine. There needs to be some level of, the best way to teach people to learn is to cause them to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't know that they are failing, they will never try to improve at that mechanic.
To me, Growl, you said level 1. I think it's interesting because I think that some things in World of Warcraft you're allowed to fail at, but I think that some things you don't need to be failing at, and it's kind of like walking that fine line of like, where is failure acceptable? Is failure acceptable if somebody is, farming 12-year-old content, or is where does failure being acceptable start? Does it start whenever you're entering a delve? Does it start whenever you're doing group content in LFR? Like, where does it start? And I think that determining that line is actually kind of important. But I do tend to agree with you though that WoW does have a tendency to baby people.
Like the clear example you brought up is Arcara. That mechanic should have been a one-shot from M0. Straight up, just insta kill if you miss the mechanic. Because like you said, you're gonna kill it in 2 cycles anyways on a low key. It doesn't matter if someone dies there. But in order to teach the person, they need to actually do the mechanic rather than not like eating the damage. The healer has to heal them. They're then doing 75% reduced damage for however long. They might not even know that they fucked up. But if they die, they're like, okay, I clearly did something wrong. Like, I realistically think Blizzard should and can use the insta-kill flag more. Not like does a massive amount of million damage because then immunities and stuff go through it, but straight up the insta-kill flag.
Yeah.
Impossible.
I
agree.
I think it's an interesting thought process.
And to throw the people a bone too, to comment on the idea about showing you what you did wrong, that's definitely something that I do not like about Fellowship. And thinking back to the add-ons are going away. Hopefully the in-game one thing we take advantage of from details is that the death log, right? You can look at a combat log of all the events that happened to you, and then you can look up what the abilities are, what hit you with what, and you can see what kills you. In Fellowship, there's no death log. It'll tell you the last hit, but that's it. That's definitely something that I think Blizzard needs to do a good job of when they, start removing add-ons, is making sure that you know exactly what things that you got hit by, and obviously it's on you to look up what the abilities do, but to die, sometimes in Fellowship you'll die and it'll literally say what kills you is environment, and you have no idea what mechanic you failed, what damage instances you took. Did you get hit for 90% of your health and then you took fall damage, or did you fall off a bridge, or you have no idea? And that's something that is we've talked about things that we need to stress that are in the WoW UI to make sure that the game is playable by midnight. I'm not saying it's going to be better than the current UI, and I think that good death logs is definitely way up there on my list.
I think that good telegraphing too, they're going to have to really go hard on fixing the telegraphing in the game to make players understand why things are happening, because WoW has a lot of really good third-party tools to be able to. I think that MDT is obviously a very broken third-party tool, and people love it for the routing functionality. I think one of the best parts of MDT, though, is the ability to be able to right-click on a mob, see the mob information, and read the abilities that the mob has. And I think that WoW needs something like that in its base game. I actually think that Fellowship needs something like that in its base game, too, to be able to actually read tooltips and shit and figure out what's actually going on. But WoW tooltips suck. I think that they really need to be looking to fix some of their tooltips to make sure that everything is very clear as to what's happening. But also, and this is especially true for Mythic Plus because you have the Dungeon Journal for Raid, but a way to figure out what trash mobs do in Mythic Plus is a huge deal, and I'm 100% on board with what Growl is saying about the death log.
Kind of interesting question to play devil's advocate a little. Is it because you want the abilities on trash because it's an expectation to know everything you go in?
No, it's because it's because they make trash deadly. I think it's genuinely because they make trash hard. Trash is in most situations in Mythic Plus harder than bosses, much harder than bosses even. And so you need to actually know what every single trash mob does. And there's a lot of trash mobs that you're like, oh, I thought I did this, but in reality, this mechanic works differently. And I wouldn't have been able to tell prior to being able to read the tooltip. And there's no way of reading the tooltip in game that's easily accessible.
But why is that different from bosses to trash would be my question. Because you're essentially saying, I want to be able to look up everything about the trash beforehand. But with bosses, you're like, it's okay to fail. You need, sometimes you need to die to learn the mechanics, but you want to know the trash stuff right away.
There is a dungeon journal for bosses for Mythic Plus is the difference.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of the difference right there for me.
Would that not have the opposite effect of what you're looking for, of increase the burden of knowledge of going into Mythic Plus? You're expected to know even more going to Mythic Plus rather than learning from doing the dungeon itself?
I do. Okay, I think that's a self-inflicted problem, personally. Like,
that is what I wanted to hear.
I see what you're saying. I do believe that is a self-inflicted problem where you're putting those unrealistic expectations on yourself to have all the perfect information. Whenever I do dungeons on the PTR, on the beta or whatever, I'm not reading the fucking dungeon journal. I'm not looking at. Whenever I go do raid testing for bosses, the reason that I'm at the raid testing is actually to learn. And that's why I'm on the PTR. But for most people, I actually don't think that they should log into the PTR, and I actually don't think that they should read the dungeon journal. I think that they should like learn and experience things first time for themselves. But there's this stupid expectation that's put forth by the community onto people that you have to be perfect from day one, and I don't like that. That's kind of this self-inflicted rule.
And that is essentially what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
I guess I see it more as a reference material. Like, if you want to go in the dungeon journal or look up all the things you can.
Yes.
But for the most part, it should be there if you don't understand. Like, if you do a dungeon and then things went wrong and then you're like, what went wrong?
Why
you should be able to look up, okay, what does this trash mob do? What does this mini boss do? Like, I don't think you necessarily... I mean, again, if you want to, like, that's a whole nother story. Look up all the information beforehand, but I just think it should be there so that when things go wrong, you have an ability to figure it out. Like, that's one of the biggest difficulty hurdles in game design, and like what can separate a very good game from a very stupid game is to create something that's a challenge to the player, but feels like it's fair, and it's like you can learn from it. Like, I guess I've been kind of on a weird Jeopardy kick lately and looking at trivia stuff, and one thing I found was interesting is the way they explained trivia was a good trivia question. It should almost feel like you should be able to get the answer even though you don't know it, right? Like, you should be able to like steer yourself in the ballpark of what you should know. Like, obviously you don't, you can't just guess it from the question, but you should be able to, make a good guess at the question. And that's kind of it is with game design too. Of when you fail, you should be able to think like, maybe I should have done this. You might be wrong one or two times, but you should be in the neighborhood of like, there was one mechanic that I did on a dungeon today where the boss goes on the tank and then there's a circle around the tank and it's like, oh, this is a soak. And then we all ran in the circle. Bang! We all fucking die. The entire party full wiped. And then we're like, okay, well, the circle's a bad circle. Now that's not a soak. That's not a soak, right? And it's like, well, okay, like, no, that's what that circle means. And then it's like, okay, we weren't right the first time, but as soon as we failed it, we just laughed and we're like, okay, that's what that means. Okay.
It's kind of like you're saying, like a good trivia question. Whenever you hear the answer, you're like, oh, I should have known that. You're like, okay,
yep,
I get it now.
Going to poke at a ley line. At least make sure it's
last thing that I want to talk about Fellowship before we move on to some random stuff such as Crest update. Holy shit. Class design in this game. I think that this is something that's actually been kind of interesting, and I think that it's been discussed a decent amount by players who are looking towards Midnight, seeing that specs and classes are getting pruned down, and then they see Fellowship have 5, 6, 7, 8 button classes that have minimal talents. What are your guys' thoughts on the class design of this game? And do you think that it lacks depth compared to World of Warcraft specs? Like, what are your kind of thoughts just in terms of the class design of Fellowship and how it relates to WoW? Could WoW, prune their specializations to be as simple as Fellowship specs and still feel good? It's also kind of an interesting question.
So,
but if this entire cave ends up exploding with arcane
this is something that I talked quite a bit about on stream, and I think Squishy will have some opinions on this as well. So when it comes to the UI, what is difficulty and what is depth can change a lot depending on what you have available to you, right? Like, for example, a lot of people are looking at WoW classes thinking they're going to be dramatically simplified, but that's because they're used to the wealth of information that they have, not just in terms of like to help your rotation, but also to help you see what's going on in the dungeon, right? To know, okay, for example, like, just as a very small example, right? When I focus a mob in Mythic Plus, I can make it so there's a sound that plays when I need to kick the mob. It comes up in a special huge location to tell me the cast that I need to kick. It filters out other casts that I don't need to kick or look at, and it tells me if my kick is on CD or is available or is going to come up during the cast, right? Whereas in Fellowship, your UI is not good, right? You're playing with the base UI. You literally have to stare at the nameplate of the mob and wait to see the kick. It is a lot harder to do your rotation if there's a kick that your party wipes if you don't get it. It's a lot harder to do your rotation when you're staring at that kick, right? But when I'm playing Jangbute, I can just be doing an entire Mortal Kombat fatality opener with Surge, Touch, Barrage, looking at all this shit because I know it's going to go kick and then have a giant green bar that covers my entire screen, right? And so the difficulty changes, and just because it isn't like complicated or in depth doesn't mean it isn't very, very hard. And so a class can be very simple, but the dungeon mechanics can really take you out of your element and challenge you in a way that oh, I'm pressing multi-shot and there's only 2 mobs here, and I'm completely, even though your rotation is so freaking basic, it's well, I need to kick this mob and it's so important, or I need to dodge this frontal, and I have, you might, if you're used to WoW, you might not like that. You might think, oh, this is the game, the game getting the upper hand on you or not being fair or whatever. But that's how most games are. They challenge you by, you have to pay attention to what's going on, and not just you have the game feeding you all of the information about everything in the exact way that you want it to be fed to you. That way you can, do all this crazy shit, but are you really doing it because the game is helping you so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it a lot there. For people, it's changing what skill is, and this is essentially what WoW is turning into, right? You're going to have to do things with your own eyeballs now.
Mm-hmm.
Which rather than hearing or other things, the game telling you when to do things, they want that decision making to come down to you. But I think the part that we are missing specifically from the WoW side is, how much is that going to matter? Are they reducing the number of bolters? Are they reducing the number of massive kicks? What is the landscape of things that are important going to be? Because we haven't seen anything above a normal dungeon yet, if I recall correctly.
That's correct, yeah.
So we don't have the answers to that. And even questions like, nameplates, you're essentially playing, with the base UI here. These nameplates are pretty functional on Fellowship. Are they like WoW's customizable? No, absolutely fucking not. It's lacking a lot of features.
They're kind of ugly, but they work.
They work. And I think there are very, very valid complaints from people about WoW's current nameplates, including, them moving all over the goddamn screen, and the first name of mobs, always being the same.
And they're ugly.
So, but I think the thing that has been unsaid by Blizzard is that they want people to be on an even playing ground, and they want people to make the decisions themselves rather than being told to by add-ons. And they have never said that. That was never part of their stated design goals, but I think that's the way that things are going right now. They want you to decide whether or not to kick, not hear kick and then you just press the button.
Yeah.
So
one of my favorite things about World of Warcraft is the amount of depth that individual classes have. And the more I've played Fellowship, I actually feel like the depth in Fellowship's classes, the hardest Fellowship class is probably way easier than the easiest World of Warcraft specialization. And that's due to the fact that WoW classes have 30 talents in your spec tree that 15 of them, you've just decided that they don't matter. They matter. The robot takes into account whenever you're simming your character, but you've determined that it doesn't matter because tracking it and figuring out what to do with all these buffs would be completely not worth the brain power that you spend on it. But one of these things is World of Warcraft classes, I love the depth, and the depth of the combat and the specs and the classes in WoW creates a lot of replayability for me personally. But having been playing Fellowship a lot more, it's kind of proven to me that you could have something be a little bit more simple than where we're currently slated to be with WoW specs and War Within. And it can move to be slightly easier, but still fun and engaging and have that level of depth and replayability. Because Fellowship specs, I feel like I'm learning and continuing to get better each and every single day that I'm logging in and just, perfecting and mastering your rotation is just part of it, and it eventually just comes with time. And you hopeful making a dummy, that's just a lie. That's not how World of Warcraft works. You don't sit there and hit a target dummy for 5 minutes and then become a professional World of Warcraft player. The same way you don't sit there and hit a dummy for 5 minutes and become a professional Fellowship player who's 10,000 score or whatever.
Yeah, I think the thing that like Graal mentioned earlier, it's like, what do people actually need as part of their UI?
Yeah, sure.
Do you really need, this massive kick weak aura? No, you don't. Would it be nice to have? Does it make you play better? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it actually is not needed, as Fellowship clearly proves, and as a bunch of people on WoW also prove, you don't need that. But it makes you play better.
Okay, let's pivot this into some more WoW-centric talk now. You said that, like, what do people need? And something that Blizzard added 5 days ago was pandemic dot assistance and dot tracking as a part of the cooldown manager. Now, this isn't currently working with all specializations. I logged in and checked Druid. It did not work at all for Druid's dots, but I saw screenshots of it working for, like, Assassination Rogue and stuff like that. So dots and pandemic dot tracking are things that Blizzard are looking to currently add. I think that this is overall just a huge W. I was kind of annoyed about pandemic dot tracking, a couple of episodes ago. So to see that Blizzard was like, you know what? You guys are right. You do need this. And I'm like, thank God. Thank you for adding this into the game. Now that kind of adds the question, what else would you add whenever you were starting to look at things on the UI front? I think that some of the most common things that I've been seeing are, a better accessible resource bar, buff and debuff tracking, blacklist and whitelisting of buffs and debuffs on party frames. I think that those are some of the most commonly requested items. You guys feel super strongly about any of these?
Yeah, so I got some flack that episode for like hating on your take or interrupting you, and I think I didn't word what I thought the right way. And I think that this is just something that like we don't really know exactly what Blizzard has planned. And if anything, this for people who are like worried about the add-ons or the UI, this is a pretty big W, right? Because if you remember, I sort of had the take that okay, they'll probably improve dot tracking on the cooldown tracker, but like, does it really need a pandemic refresh thing or whatever? Like that is, and Blizzard says yes, right? They say, hey, we don't really mind these certain things that are helping out your rotation or reminders or whatever, right? Like we understand that you guys are used to these, and for some classes, these are really important. And while I still think that the UI won't be great when it comes out, I mean, this is a huge W for people who are worried about the game not giving you the information it needs, right? Like, a lot of people are worried about the party frames or the nameplates, for example, but if Blizzard is willing to, I don't want to say cave, but make improvements in this direction, then surely, hopefully, at some point, we'll see improvements to other parts of the UI, right? Like, this is, I think, a very good sign. I think this is a very good sign, the fact that they have addressed this issue.
Yeah, so the other thing that they did this week was they added sounds. So it's important to note that there are no custom sounds. You can only pick one of 67 sounds or text-to-speech. And the text-to-speech has to be exactly the name of the ability. There is no option to say, like, soak, or, like, kick, yeah, that kind of thing. It will say specifically, hover, deep breath, like that kind of stuff. So
in the earth and elements.
So sorry, just to clarify. So when it comes off cooldown,
so there's a couple triggers. So you can see at the top there, the 4 options are available, pandemic, on cooldown, or charge gained. So you can set it kind of a little bit like Weak Auras or Tell Me When, that when this thing happens, like if hover gains a charge, boom, you can make it say hover or whatever. So there's plenty of different options there. I'll be honest, a lot of the sounds are a little longer than I'd like, so I'm not sure that I use all of them. But the main one that I think a lot of people use is the fucking air horn. And the air horn's back.
I mean, come on. They're putting the air horn in, they have the pandemic refresh glows, like, I think these are very good signs if you're worried about the UI. Like, the fact that they're willing to accommodate players to this. Like, what other game puts air horns in the game? Can you guys name a single game that, like, puts air horns, like, or, like, allows you to put air horns in the game?
Is it a hot take that I wish they, instead of putting air horns and stuff like that into the game, I actually wish that they'd improve boss voice lines. I know that the bosses hit specific voice lines on specific mechanics. I actually wish they would be improved and work in a different manner than they currently work on.
So, it's important to note that these sounds right now are not attached to the DBM, the Blizzard DBM, and stuff like that.
I know, yeah.
This is only for abilities.
I think that this is... It's a controversy. I don't like this. I don't think that you should actually be able to have like air horns and sounds on your UI, but I think that that's just my personal take on it, right? Like that's just my personal opinion.
But like, what do most people use air horn for? Probably standing in some kind of bat,
getting
right?
targeted by an ability and you have to press a defensive.
That is not allowed anymore.
Yeah.
That is not a thing, right? Like this is specifically when an ability comes up or like happens. Like you can't even say, when I get a charge of Time Spiral, play a sound. That is not a real thing you can do anymore.
I'm moving closer to the stage where I think that sounds in the game should be sacred, where you shouldn't get sounds from UI elements. Like I think that getting sounds from UI elements is weird.
I think that
we've had it in WoW for forever, so I know that like everybody's accustomed to it. But I think that if you take a step back and you're like what Growl said, what other game do you have an air horn going off in your ear whenever something is up? Like that, isn't that not kind of weird?
I think that your comment about sounds in the game is very interesting. And someone made the comparison to Overwatch, which is funny because it's also a Blizzard game. One thing that's really, really cool about Overwatch, and I was for a time a solo queue Overwatch degen, and I would be tilted by and potentially tilt my teammates or other people very often in that game. And so I eventually just had more fun playing the game muted with no voice chat or party chat. But the thing about that game is there are a lot of vocal callouts, both that you can do in game and that the game does automatically. And I think that okay, I get that WoW has sounds, quote unquote, for things, but making it a little bit more user-friendly or obvious. So examples might be, let's say your healer pops a big CD, right? Tranquility or whatever, right? Hearing, like, knowing that as someone in the party would help, right? Same as, let's say you're a tank and you gain bark skin or like whatever your healer's external is, right? Having a voice line that your healer put an external on you, I think would be very, very, very cool if it just happened. If you could just turn that on in the options of like, or like your tank uses AoE taunt, or, when a DPS pops cooldowns. Like, think about that for a second. Like,
yeah.
We're talking about weak auras and party frames and stuff and like needing a PI weak aura, but like when you play Mercy or whatever in Overwatch, you literally know every single time when your teammates ult, you hear Genji yelling his weeb shit as he's flying in the air, and you know to boost him, right? Like, why doesn't my mage just yell weeb shit when he pops his combustion, and then I know, and then I can PI him, right? Like, I think, and I'm not saying this should always be in the game for everybody, like this should be a toggleable thing, but having callouts for like major cooldowns and defenses maybe, I think would be very, very useful and go a long way in terms of, that's almost better. Like, I would almost rather have that than, rare or empowered and then my party frame glowing or whatever, right? Like, to me, that feels way more natural and better, I think, for newer players.
But now we're getting into a point where we're talking about combat, of like your ability to be able to engage in a party versus like your own personal UI, right? Those are like almost, what Squishy was saying is that those are almost two separate discussions, yeah?
I think you would have a very hard time removing sounds from this game, mostly on the topic of accessibility. Many people cannot, or would rather an auditory signal. Like, how is it different to hear the word, instead of hot hands versus seeing a hot hands weak aura icon pop up?
I think everybody knows the difference between the two. Like, you set up your UI, and looking at the UI HUD is very different than somebody coming in your ear and you self-select this button and being like, hot hands available, right? Like, I think it's very clear what the difference between those two are.
I think I don't disagree with you. I just don't think they would ever remove it for accessibility purposes.
I don't think they're removing it. I'm just saying that, like, in my personal opinion, this is just my personal take. I think that the game would have been better off if sounds were not such a core part of, like, external sounds, like weird external sounds, like air horn, were not very popular.
That I don't disagree with.
Yeah, like, I don't think it's like a, oh yeah, they should remove this. It's more just like
the random chimes and stuff like that is what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I'm just like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it belongs in the game. It always feels like it's some outside source.